I'm Gab, he's Jules. Weird weather, grey skies essentially over West London. Grayer skies over Gareth Southgate's head.
Aye.
We're going to be talking about that. We'll be talking some Manchester United manager future, the gift that keeps on giving. We're talking about France's impressive scoreless draw with Canada.
Ah, yes.
And almost as good a night as Macron. But let's start with England and Iceland. And the reason we're talking about England is because even as neutrals, and as you may have gathered from our accents, neither of us are English, but we've been here a long time, and we wonder whether, at some point, this country, which has done such a good job producing so many young players, this country, which literally invented the game, which has the best league in the world, which probably spends more on its national team in terms of structures and supports and coaching and whatever else than anybody else. When are they going to get it together? Obviously, they were runners-up, lost the final.
Close.
Forget to who. Last time.
Team in blue.
At Wembley.
Yeah.
And still, they've only won one major trophy in history. And even that one, if you were German, which neither of us are, you might say, there's a big asterisk here.
Yeah.
And maybe a big asterisk when they played Argentina in the quarterfinal as well, and a big asterisk against Portugal too. Different time to sing things, right? They should be getting it together. And then psychologically, they have these games, and it's only a friendly, and it's Iceland who will be watching the tournament on television. But they lose, and I feel it's kind of the nature of the media, football fans here, of discourse, that this becomes a really big deal.
Yeah, although we know we've covered a lot of big tournaments together, and we know that the truth of the last friendly before you travel to whatever tournament is not always... we don't need to take too much away from it. However, I think there was a lot of concern in that performance against Iceland and that defeat at Wembley. Not just the fact that at the end you have to do this stupid lap of honor. I don't know why. When on the big screen it says next stop Germany 2024, the stadium is half empty. You got booed off at halftime and at the end because you were bad, and you still have to do the lap of honor. Clap the few remainings who were there, who've just been booing you. That was weird.
Can I say something? There's the FA employs a lot of, not as many as they did in the past, but they employ a lot of people. Whoever's in charge of that, and I get the whole let's give him a good send off. It's like a pep rally. Southgate or Southgate's boss should be in touch with them and says, like, lads, let's read the room.
Yeah,
if we lose this game, if half the people have left, it's Friday night, nobody cares. Let's not make them look stupid. Let's just have them go over, applaud the fans who are there, and then get out.
Yeah,
right?
I agree. But it was really interesting because we saw an Iceland team that played really deep, certainly in the first half after taking the lead early. A goal that was far too easy to score, by the way. Problem in the pressing from England, problem defensively, how easy it was for Iceland to create that. Stones 1v1, gets done in the inside. Yeah. Really strange.
And I think you make a good point there about the issue with the pressing, because you can look at it and you say, well, Ramsdale should have done better, well, Stones should have done better, sure. But there was a breakdown before that, which allowed the guy to get one-on-one with Stones.
And that's Iceland as well, by the way. That you could not press and box them out and not letting them do 2-3 passes together. But after that, there was just no way for this England team to break down that Icelandic defense, which I find really weird. There's one thing I think for sure is that whether Southgate is a fan of Alexander-Arnold or not, whether we think that he's got flaws defensively, which he has, when you play against a low block, and they will do that against Slovenia, probably as well maybe against Serbia, Trent Alexander-Arnold has to start at right back and not play as a right back, play as a whatever you want him to do. But that creativity that he brings is needed against a deep block, a low block like Iceland, because you had nothing from Kyle Walker on the right, nothing from Trippier on the left because he's not a left back. And then by consequence, you had no much width apart from Anthony Gordon, I guess, on the left-hand side, who was good and did a few good things. But overall, it was just not enough in terms of creativity, creating chances, having that kind of input. And we hardly saw Phil Foden, which, again, I really struggled to understand how you can have the best player of the Premier League in your team and not use him at his best.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Foden thing, when he plays for City, he's got so many great players around him who can... So many great passers. No. But I feel like with England, I'm talking about great passers in midfield, from deeper positions that can move the ball around and destabilize a low block, which then opens up room for you, and then Foden can do his thing. I feel like with England that's missing, and I would imagine, if you remember when England put out their list, they had Alexander-Arnold listed among the midfielders.
Yeah.
Increasingly, I wonder if it's going to be where we end up seeing him in the tournament. All right, Jules, let's pick this up. You had a question for me.
Yeah, no, it's not that. Trent cannot play in a double pivot midfield, right? We agree to that. So him and Rice can't play, the two of them on their own. Him and Mainu can't play like that.
It would put a very different onus on Rice, and it would imbalance the team if you did that. I think it's difficult.
It's impossible.
Mainu maybe potentially the skill set, but I need to see
Mainu
more.
and Trent.
No, but I'm saying is like Mainu. I wouldn't rule it out, but I'm saying is I've seen Mainu. I've seen 6 months of this guy. Right, he's 18 years old. Maybe in 10 years, Mainu grows into something else, and then maybe you can do it. But in 10 years, Trent Alexander-Arnold will be, 37? So he won't be playing for England. So it's a moot point. But yeah, no, Rice and Trent in a two, I think it's problematic.
So he played as a two with Gallagher against Bosnia. Bosnia are like a terrible team. So that means if you play Trent in midfield like you saying, you have to have a three-man midfield. So let's say Rice, Gallagher and Trent, Rice, Mainu and Trent.
Yeah.
Rice even. So where do you put Foden? You have to put Foden wide, which is I don't think is the answer here. That's why for me I would keep Trent certainly against teams that are low block. Against France, I would not play Trent. He would come on as a sub, and I would play Walker at right back to play against Coman, Dembele, whoever plays on the left for France, Kylian, Thuram, whatever. But I think against the lower blocks, it makes a lot of sense to have Trent playing at right back, but actually not being a right back, being just an extra midfielder, an extra attacker, an extra whatever you want him to be.
And then you need to have mechanisms to cover for him.
Yeah, but that's easy behind.
But the thing is, even the Trent stepping from right back into midfield, Trent's such a fantastic sort of attacking force when he was at his best, right? But at Liverpool, he wasn't doing it in sort of the old stepping into midfield thing. He was doing it from a wide area. We've seen him do it a little bit this season when they were low on players and Klopp was trying different things. He did a little bit of that. But it's not something he's done a lot.
No, I don't want him to step into midfield. I want him to play at right back, but just be like he plays at Liverpool and not worry too much about defensive duties. Because against those kind of teams, you don't need to really.
Yeah, but you still have... I don't know. It's just not... I don't think it's a good combination. I don't think pieces fit together right. It also would affect, assuming Saka is your right winger, yeah?
Yeah, but Trent plays in the half right space. It
would affect Saka as well, unless you want Saka just to purely stay wide.
Yeah, which is what he does anyway. Saka is the king of positional play, so he will play like he does at Arsenal, which is the right thing to do.
And Trent comes in the channel inside him?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I mean...
The half space on the right.
It seems absurd when you've had the same manager for 6 years, 7 years, however long it's been. And these guys have played together so many times, they have so many caps, that we're still kind of debating, how does this fit with that?
So we go back to the limit of Southgate. And the fact that their weakest point is him.
I don't
Which I've always said, sorry Gareth, but you are the weakest link.
I don't want to pick on him too much. He made a good point on the FC show last night. So for a long time, he was all about loyalty, his guys, Raheem Sterling, Harry Maguire, Jordan Henderson, blah, blah, blah. I know he's kind of gone off in a different direction where he'll bring in, Kobbie Mainoo, who's obviously one obvious example and so on.
Yeah.
There's pros and cons to both, but I am interested in, is this the evolution of Southgate where he says like, I view football differently. And now it's not so much about Club England and having my guys. Now it's more about picking on form, perhaps. Also, why maybe we didn't see Grealish in the squad.
Yeah, I think Maguire was injured and that's why he's not in. Otherwise, he would have been in. I think Southgate knows this is the last tournament. And I guess for the last tournament, you don't need to build. The way a national team head coach sees tournaments coming up, especially the ones in big countries, not so much small countries, but big countries is like, okay, this is not just this Euros coming. I've got the World Cup in 2 years' time. And I'm building for that. I'm even maybe building for the following Euros after that. In the UK, for example, let's say if it was Southgate, I think he knows this is his last tournament. And then for that, you're right. The evolution is like, well, I don't need to build a group here because after that, someone else is going to come after me and they will do what they want. They keep the same, They change it, they change 50%, 90%. Me, it's just about this one. And no, I'm not projecting myself after these Euros. This is my last one. So I don't really need this kind of structure of I'll take him and his experience and how good he could be in the dressing room, and he's been good for me, I've been good for him, blah, blah, blah. This is his last one. That's how I see it.
I think that view probably also depends on whether you're the kind of manager that does particularly sophisticated things tactically, and so you need players. But I'm of the school of thought that there's no such thing as building for the next one. I know, so I agree with you. Some managers do that.
Yeah. You have to.
But I think you just have to treat every competition as it's your last, simply because winning a competition is so important to the psyche of a nation, to how you're regarded. And there is so much luck and randomness.
Yeah, for sure.
And, it can be the draw, refereeing decision, knockout phases, whatever. There's so many things that can happen that you just have to pick the players that you think give you the best shot to win every game as you advance through the tournament.
Yeah.
And that may mean going for your experienced guy, maybe, I'll mention Jordan Henderson, obviously not him from what we now know, but like maybe Jordan Henderson unspectacular, but whatever, I know him, I can trust him in this game. And then for these 90 minutes, he can give me more than Kobbie Mainoo, for example, right?
Yeah.
That, I think, is the tricky situation. I want to go back to Foden a little bit. So when Bellingham plays, I'm assuming Bellingham and Rice are definites in midfield.
Yeah.
Right? Well, when in the scenario before, right? Kobbie Mainoo is not going to be there. Unless he switches to a 3, which we don't think he's going to do because we think it's going to be Foden in the hole. But then I also think, once they advance in the tournament, do we get to see conservative Gareth again?
Maybe.
Okay, but then...
So then you play Foden wide. But already...
Wide on the flank. Wide on the left?
Yeah. Well, yeah, you can't move Saka. Saka is a starter 100% on the right.
Cole Palmer thanks you for the support.
Cole Palmer is not a winger. Cole Palmer...
But you don't play with a 10.
Well, yeah, but that's...
Could it be an idea?
Cole Palmer is the best, super sub and impact player they have on the bench. So he will come on for the last half an hour, more if needed, but that would be perfect for him.
Could it be an idea, hypothetically? What if they didn't play with wingers? What if it was some sort of 4-3-2-1 with Foden and Palmer inside behind Kane?
I mean, where's the width coming from? Your
you
fullback?
play.
What
Okay. Honestly,
yeah.
What I would do? Well, I could not what I would do. I would love for him to have experimented this, maybe in-house friendly. But if you have to play your foreign players, right? And obviously, it's Foden and Palmer are in good form right now, and they're both number 10s. Realistically, right? They can do different roles, but they're essentially number 10s. And your consideration is width. I'm just going to throw this out there, right? Could you think of moving Saka back to the position he played originally when he broke into?
Please, no.
Why? Is it really that different?
Gab, this is the Euros. This is not like...
You're just telling me Trippier is not a left back.
Yeah.
Right?
So Trippier, as you saw against Iceland, doesn't bring you anything there. I mean, he can play there.
Okay, it's fine. So what if you had... I'm just wondering if this ever crossed Southgate's mind.
Yeah.
Trent at right back or Walker if you're playing against somebody scary.
Yeah.
Saka at left back.
Yeah.
And that's where the width comes from.
Yeah.
And then you have the 2 number 10s. And then you have, just for balance...
Yeah.
You have Bellingham, Rice, and whoever you want as a third one, Kobbie Mainoo. Maybe even Trent as the third one. Because Trent...
You said he was right back.
No, you can put Kyle Walker right back.
Kyle Walker doesn't bring you anything going forward anymore.
It doesn't matter because you have Trent Alexander on the right side of the 3 in midfield. You have Cole Palmer going to the right. You've got that. You don't need to have...
I love this, but... No,
you don't think it ever crossed? No. Okay,
I love it, but I think it's really good. It's really good. Also, so you would move Bellingham. So because the Bellingham, by the way, why is Bellingham getting a week off extra when all the other Real Madrid players have joined up with the national team 2 days or 3 days for some after the final, and he gets 8 actually.
I'm assuming.
And misses the only 2 friendly that they have.
Yeah, that's a little bit interesting, especially because. With England, he's going to presumably play a different role than he played with Real Madrid this year.
That was my question. So you move him.
I'm guessing Southgate, because Bellingham is so smart and so mature, despite his young age and yada, 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 I bet Gareth spoke to him and said, all right, yeah, I'm satisfied. You can come in, you're plug and play, you'll get this you're our best player anyway, and we can just drop you in there. When we talk about Saka, a lot of people made a big deal out of. I want to get your view on this because people complain that all England were poor as a whole, but a lot of the back pages and stuff seem to focus on Saka as some kind of
his photo,
his photo, his symbol,
of the failure, of the defeat,
right? And people are tying this back to the Euro 2020 final when 3 England players missed penalties. They were all people of color: Saka, Sancho, and Rashford, if I remember correctly. Is there something there, or are people being a little too? I mean, Saka hasn't spoken about this, right?
No. I mean, Sir Lewis Hamilton and Ian Wright have to, I think, raise this issue, which I think is fair to raise. It can't be a coincidence that more than half of the national newspapers here had Saka's face and Saka's photos when he played 25 minutes in this game.
Was it all the same photo?
No, because some he was on the floor, others he was standing up.
It's the part that's slightly ominous, because if it's all the same picture, if you have a great picture and Saka happens to be in it, fine, right? But if they're all choosing different Saka photos, then it's not like, oh, this picture's so good and perfectly encapsulate the moment. Let's just put that.
Yeah, and it's the some of the headlines were bad and quite orientated, I thought.
What were they like? Saka? They weren't like. Remember, like Saka.
One was like
is a
black
disgrace
ice.
to his country. What?
One was black ice or something like that with Saka's photo on it, and obviously the defeat and saying like England lost. And he just associated Bukayo Saka to a defeat where he played 25 minutes in a game where it was a friendly, not a Euros final. Certainly not his fault if his team lost. A goal that was scored before he was on the pitch, way before he was on the pitch. So it can't be a coincidence.
What black ice is for people who might live in countries where there is no ice on the roads.
Yeah.
So black ice refers to when it's icy conditions, you're driving along, but there is no sign that there is ice on the road because it's, as the name implies, it's black or it's dark, it's the same color as the pavement, and so it's dangerous. So I'm guessing the person wanted to show that here they're playing Iceland, hence the ice. England slip up when they don't expect it, as you would on black ice. Obviously, then you put a picture of Saka there, it's at best tone deaf.
I mean, I think it's an absolute disgrace. And I think the whole thing is, and I think Ian Wright said it nicely, you have to protect these young players, not just Saka himself. And I think now he get experience, he's old enough, he's starting to get, unfortunately, used to that kind of stuff. But many others as well who could one day struggle with it. And I just think this is not acceptable. And somebody has to say something to stop this habit that they seem to have, and I think there's a lot of freedom of press in this country, which is a great thing, absolutely. I'm not denying that, but I don't know, it's not the first time, and I don't think it'll be the last time, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, my take. When it comes to freedom of press, I'm almost an absolutist. You can do what you like, but then you have to be prepared for the criticism afterwards when you come up with certain headlines, with certain pictures. What I feel for Saka a little bit is he can't come out and say, this annoyed me, because then he looks weak. Right?
Yeah.
Then people are going to say, oh, Saka's letting this affect him. Like, why is he so mentally weak? And the guy's been starting for one of the biggest clubs in the Premier League since he was 18. So he's obviously not mentally weak, right? He's got good games, he's got bad games like everybody else. And so if he's affected by it, he can't fight back publicly, right? Which is why, like you said, Ian Wright and I guess Lewis Hamilton spoke up about it.
Yeah, and he would give legs to the story, which is what the papers want anyway. And he knows that too well.
And it's probably what Southgate doesn't want. He just wants them to buckle down and focus on their opening game.
And I just think the whole thing was quite baffling.
All right, enough England, enough misery, enough 3 lines in the dirt. Let's cheer ourselves up with some quick hits.
Let's go, Gab.
Thomas Tuchel, okay, cheer yourselves up, will not be the new Manchester United manager, though, Jules, it's unclear whether it's a case of him pulling out after meeting Jim Ratcliffe in person in Monaco or United pulling out after spending time with Thomas Tuchel.
Yeah, we don't know yet. Well, I mean, I'm sure we will find out.
We've heard both versions.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe a little bit of both? More
Maybe
than one
it's
thing
a
can
bit
be
of
true?
both. We kind of knew that Ratcliffe liked the profile and liked him and that he was a contender on the short list. We still don't know, by the way. I mean, the decision on Ten Hag's future has been postponed. We thought it could have been last week. It was not. So
Rob Dawson tells us it's this week.
It's this week. So whether they keep him or not, it looks like you don't meet other managers, potential managers, if you want to keep your current one, right? You just don't. That's not what you do. So clearly, they want to get rid of Ten Hag and get somebody else in. If they don't find the right person to replace him with, they might keep him for a little bit longer, maybe. But imagine if you're Ten Hag, and we have no sympathy, I really don't care how Ten Hag feels. But this is you can't feel good about yourself when this is happening.
Under the old paradigm, I would agree with you. Under the new one, they're running a business. He has paid a ton of money in part for this. As long as you're honest with him, as long as you go to some, Erik, we think you had a crappy season. We've got very little faith that you're actually going to turn this around long term.
Yeah.
We're going to talk to other managers. We may find somebody we like more than you. We may not. You're under contract. We'll keep you to your contract. We expect you to behave like a pro.
Yeah.
And then Erik Ten Hag says, yes, thank you for being honest with me and straight up and not going behind my back. No, that's what I would do.
Yeah, I think that's
and I would expect Ten Hag to maybe respect that. Yeah. I don't know.
And Gab, when Tuchel was pitching to Ratcliffe, he said he had a plan to get the best out of Mason Mount, who did well for him at Chelsea before and had a terrible first season at United. And Jadon Sancho as well, who the club are reportedly looking to ship for £40 million. What does that tell you?
Well, it tells me that Tuchel, first and foremost, says, hey, before we start going in about how much money do I have to spend, will you back me? I'm going to buy him, and him. I'm going to say, no, look, I'm going to fix what's there. And look, Mount had a bad season, but Mount was also injured for much of the season. Let's not forget. So going there and saying, hey, Mason Mount can be a real contributor. He was a real contributor at Chelsea 2-3 years ago. Same thing with Sancho. You saw Sancho do reasonably well for Borussia Dortmund. Hey, I can get him back. So this is exactly what Tuchel should be saying to him.
Yeah, he said I did the same with Rudiger when I was at Chelsea.
Yeah, Bob. So there you go. Take credit for Rudiger winning the Champions League too. Why don't you? No, just kidding. We love Tommy. More Ratcliffe. Is he finally going to sell Nice so they stop busting his stones over dual ownership?
It's a good question, Gab, because there was a few articles in the UK saying that Nice is up for sale, Ineos want out, etc. The club itself and Nice is saying, no, it's not for sale, certainly not right now. Yes, Ineos are more focused on United, it's normal, it's a bigger club, they've just got into it. It's Ratcliffe, a club that he was supporting as a kid, so all of that. And yet the budget at Nice will go down for next season. But they're still committed. That's not for sale. We're still working on the next season and building for the future, blah, blah, blah. The thing that you would usually say, I guess. Do we believe them? We don't have to. If there's a good offer on the table, I'm pretty sure that Ineos would sell Nice. They bought it for 100 million euros 5 years ago now, this summer. But for now, there just might not be anybody interested. It's just as simple as that.
Great stadium, great city, great food, ground, great weather, nice training ground apparently, which I've never been to.
Yeah, why not? Germany beat Greece 2-1 on Friday night in the final warm-up ahead of their Euros, of course. Gab, how did they look? And how about my boy, Pascal Gross? What a goal.
Pascal Gross. I'm so happy for him.
Me too.
He's one of those guys who's just overlooked for so long.
I know.
Right? I thought they looked okay, actually. I thought Greece had their chances. I mean, they had 70% possession, not always a smooth. Gave up chances when they lost the ball, which you kind of expect.
Neuer made 2 great saves.
Looked a little bit leggy. But again, it's the last one before the tournament. I don't think there's any reason to panic. Are they among the favorites? No. I don't think they're among the top 3 by any stretch of the imagination, because I'm also not sure how these pieces all fit together.
Yeah, I agree.
And also, I'd feel better with Kimmich in midfield, but hey. Jules, we're not done because we have more.
Yeah.
Quick hits. France and Canada battle to a scoreless draw. Nothing to be concerned about, right, Jules? And I guess nobody told Deschamps that Marcus Thuram tends to play through the middle these days.
So the Thuram one is interesting. For the game itself...
He hasn't watched Serie A all season.
No,
so
it's not that. It's not. It's actually one of the leagues that he watches the most. On the game, 0-0. Mbappe was on the bench because he was kind of rested. for 74 minutes. Not much happened. It was a good start from the French.
Mbappe was rested because he tired himself out with all those consecutive games he played.
I took a knock on his knee in the game against Luxembourg, maybe. But I thought Canada were good. They had a lot of energy, as you would expect from a Jesse Marsh team, but they played well. They hit the bar. Liam Miller had a really, really good game, I thought. So it was a good performance, I thought, overall from Canada. From the French, maybe not so much. Griezmann, who plays higher up the pitch in the last 2 games, a bit disappointing overall. Saliba started and played 62 minutes with Upamecano and 28 with Konate. Did well. I don't think, unfortunately, it'd be enough for him to get a starting place for the first game of the Euros against Austria, but at least he was the best player on the pitch. So well done to him. Deschamps was not happy, but didn't seem too concerned either. Again, it's one of those friendlies.
When is he ever concerned? He's won a World Cup.
I know, but he didn't look happy, to be fair, on the bench, because there was a lack of urgency from the team. I don't know. There was a lot of things.
N'Golo Kante?
Really I thought he was really
I was like, who is that guy? He looks like N'Golo Kante, just a little.
So good. And for Thuram, it's interesting, I said, because, of course, he knows he plays centrally, but that would mean Mbappe would have to play left and not defend, which I think would unbalance the team defensively. We saw yesterday defensively a flat 4-4-2 out of possession, with Griezmann coming up next to Giroud, who replaced Mbappe, and Thuram being very disciplined defensively on that left-hand side. And I think Mbappe would play centrally at the start, certainly out of possession. With the ball, he can do whatever he wants, and Thuram is smart enough to adjust his runs and his positioning to where Kylian is. But defensively, you need Thuram on the left to defend, because Mbappe would not do that. And that's simple as that. Davide Fratesi scores the only goal, and what a goal, by the way, as Italy beat Bosnia also on Saturday night. Gab, what did you make of the defending champions?
Meh.
I agree.
Look, I think defensively, Italy actually have a lot of really good players. Even without Scalvini, I think Italy have a very good goalkeeper.
Yeah. Who made big saves in that game.
Who made some big saves. The midfield, if everybody's fit, some combination of Jorginho, Barella, Pellegrini, maybe Frattesi, dignified. My fear is up front, where we've got Scamacca, who, if it's the Anfield Scamacca, sure. If it's Mr. Inconsisto, Tattoo de Mess, Scamacca, not so good. And we have Federico Chiesa, who's made of paper. Again, if he shows up and he happens to be fit for these 7 games, great. So there's just no depth there. But I thought they played reasonably well against Bosnia. I mean, Di Marco made a couple of big mistakes, but that's fine. Better he makes the mistakes now than during the tournament. Kylian Mbappe says that winning the Euros is tougher than winning the World Cup. Jules, did he elaborate on his thought process, or was he just trolling South America?
No, I mean, this is the old debate, obviously, that I think is completely pointless to have anyway.
So stupid.
I know, so stupid. It's as hard to win one or the other. It depends a lot on the draw, which side of the draw you are, all of that anyway. Yeah, I think his point was like, because European teams know each other so well, and tactically it's quite a similar mindset, it's harder than when you go and play. He called them exotic teams, at the World Cup. Which
Argentina, real exotic.
Which is not really the term that you should use. As you can imagine on the ESPN FC show, the European ones defended Kylian Mbappe in Europe, like Neder Monua and Frank Leboeuf. The South Americans and Central American and North American ones went like, this is outrageous, as Stephen Nicol defended Europe as well. I mean, certainly now that the Euros has been extended to 24 teams, you'll have some weak teams in the group stage like you might have at the World Cup as well. So I don't think there's a debate anymore. Sky Germany reports that there are 6 players, Gab, who Bayern are willing to shift at the right price.
So some of these you can kind of see. I mean, Mazraoui, I guess, with Sacha Boey coming in. He was a free transfer. You can raise some money quickly there. Gnabry, unless company really loves him. I've seen enough of Gnabry, time to move on. Coman, I think there's injuries and there's contractual issues there as well. Kimmich has a year left on his contract, so it sounds like exactly the kind of message I send out while I try to negotiate for him.
Yeah,
I am a little surprised about Goretzka because I would have thought he would be a Vincent Kompany type
me too.
player. And Matthijs de Ligt really surprised me.
Me too.
Like why him? If he said Upamecano because he hasn't been playing well, fine. But de Ligt, really?
I know.
So we'll see. I don't know that you're going to get. I mean, Kimmich obviously will have a market because he's got a year left, but I think the club would want him to stay. The others, I don't know. I don't know what market that these guys really have. Mazraoui maybe, Although he's a free transfer, he's probably on bigger wages. I don't know. Brazil beat Mexico 3-2 with a peach of a late goal from none other than Endrick. Yeah. Jules, what did you learn ahead of the Copa America?
Well, at first I thought that was a really good game. Brazil with a kind of B team to start with. Vinicius was on the bench, for example. Bruno Guimaraes as well. And Paqueta too. They came on when Mexico came back into the game because Brazil scored early with Andres Pereira, then Martinelli early in the second half as well. I thought Mexico got obviously battered 4 days before by Uruguay, or 5 days before by a wonderful Uruguay performance, Darwin Núñez with a hat-trick. I thought Mexico showed up far more and better in a game where they fought hard back. They could have scored more goals, both of those teams, and I thought it was really good. And when Mexico equalized in the 93rd minute, they thought, okay, at least we can go from here. They were so mad everywhere on the bench, everything, and then Endrick and Vinicius crossed by Vinicius. Yeah, wonderful. Endrick put the AC back on in the stadium. And I think this bodes really well. I think Brazil will be very strong in the Copa America. And for Mexico, at least this was a reaction after the drubbing against Uruguay.
Toulouse's Damien Comolli was taken into custody in an investigation involving fraudulent agents and some of our favorite people. There's Christophe Galtier and his sons. Both his biological son and the weirdo adopted son with the... Well, wasn't he the one involved who sends the emails, which may have been slightly dubious?
Yeah, it's true. Also, Christophe himself has nothing to do in it, apparently.
Okay, but it's just his kid.
But his two sons. So John Valovic Galtier, who is his adopted son, as you say, and then his
biological son.
Yeah, biological son. Who's an assistant coach at Toulouse, hence why Comolli is dropped into this whole mess and whole investigation, because John Valovic Galtier is an agent without the agent license. So he's an agent like you and me, basically, as much as us. Yet, apparently, he got some commissions, he got paid to do the work of an agent, but without being allowed to be an agent. So this is the whole thing about the investigation. And John Valovic Galtier would have put his stepbrother in the Toulouse assistant job and got some money from it, from Damien Comolli, who's the Toulouse president. And that's why they're all in this. There's other agents involved, some big ones in France who have licenses. And
this is the old thing where they cut people in on a deal, essentially, right? Who really don't have much to do with the deal. That's
I think
kind of the accusation.
John Valovic Galtier acts like an agent, except that he doesn't have the license to be an agent.
So he needs a straw man to lend his name.
Exactly.
This is obviously Toulouse, owned by Redbird, we should point out as well, who also own Milan.
The arbitration tribunal involving Manchester City's legal challenge towards the Premier League over associated party transactions begins today, Gab, on Monday. And meanwhile, league bosses have been told to hand over text, emails and WhatsApp relating to Manchester City dating back to 2009.
Yeah, so obviously they're two separate cases. They've been asked to hand over all these details. It's in relation to the 115 charges. That case will be heard in November, separate from the associated party transaction case where City are suing the Premier League over fair market value and some of the new rules surrounding it. So, Jules, what's interesting here is, I'm going to go out on a limb and make an assumption here that, as happened in the UEFA case, the Premier League have asked to have access to all of Manchester City's running emails and WhatsApps, communications. And so City are saying, okay, fine, but then we want to know what you guys are saying to each other about us. Especially following, remember, with the case here in the associated party transactions, they are, in the documents, it says that, they want to take action against new owners from the Gulf, might have a different business model, whatever. I don't know that the court actually has subpoena. I always wondered about this. Maybe you know more about it.
No. Definitely not more than you, but yeah.
But I'm saying is when they say, like, all right, hand over your phone, like, do they then get, like, forensic? I mean, they're not the police, right? The tribunal. So I never understood, how can you actually force City to hand over all these emails and know that they're all the emails? And vice versa, how can City know that they're getting all Richard Masters' WhatsApps? I mean, it's...
Because that was part of the problem about the 115 charges, right? That City took a long time to send some stuff, and they were not convinced that they sent everything.
Right, that's some of the charges have to do with obstructing investigation and
maybe
whatever.
The Premier League has done the same too. I don't know. Because why, if you delete some stuff, Because you can recover old WhatsApp messages, but surely not deleted messages, right?
But and it's one thing when the police forces you to hand it over.
Yeah.
But this is an independent tribunal. Who knows? Maybe you have other stuff on there of a personal nature that has nothing to do with this that you don't want lawyers finding out about.
Yeah, true.
You know, so it's an odd one. But like lawyers, can you imagine these guys charging by the hour? Ugh, makes my skin crawl. 55,000. That's right, 55,000 people showed up at Fluminense for Thiago Silva's unveiling. Jules, they love him as much as we do. And bonus question. Is this going to be more than the people who show up for Kylian Mbappe's presentation at Real Madrid?
No. The answer is no, because the Bernabeu will be full when Kylian is presented, so that would be 90,000 more. But this was still very beautiful. They had like a lighting show as well. The atmosphere was incredible for the return of the prodigal son, of course, after what had just been more than 20 years after he left Fluminense to come to Europe, to go to Russia first, and then have the career that he's had in Europe. Now he's back. It's a wonderful story. I just love those where you go back where he all started and in a way where he belongs. That was always his plan, always his aim. Even when he was at Milan or PSG, he always thought he would love to finish his career at Fluminense. That's it. He's back. They're a really good team as well. You saw the embrace with Marcelo, which was lovely. I think it's wonderful that he's going back.
You know what's amazing is 7-1 was 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And he was already like a veteran leader then.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah, incredible. Liverpool co-owner Tom Werner, no relation to Timo obviously, but says he's determined, Gab, to stage Premier League games abroad. This is not going away.
No, and I think he may go away, though, before it happens. He was speaking to the Financial Times. He says, I'm determined to have a game played in New York. I'm like, why not Boston, dude? Like,
Philadelphia,
whatever.
I would love that.
I says, I think this is crazy. He calls it a crazy idea, not me. He says, what if we had a day where, you play one game in Tokyo, one game a few hours later in LA, one game a few hours later in Rio, one game a few hours later in Riyadh, and make it sort of a day where the Premier League is celebrated.
Wow.
It's a neat idea.
Yeah.
I actually thought years ago for the Olympics, okay, obviously not, because Paris is special. But you know what? I hate, what if you had this, you just had, having it all in one place, just had the events all over the world, then you could have a 24-hour thing, and then maybe you wouldn't have to build all these stupid venues that you're never going to use again.
You have one flame though, one Olympic. Well, how would you split the flame? And you have
use that flame to light a bunch of different flames and send them around the world. I don't know. Look, if you want to do, I get where he's coming from.
Yeah.
I think it is so out of step right now with his supporters, with most supporters in England. Most people wouldn't want this. Maybe one day it'll change, but I still think the reality is most clubs make most money from domestic fans. All the talk is sponsorship, this and that. Oh, look, the Premier League's massive in the US. Yeah, it's massive, but then it's like a rounding error because you're up against cartoons on Sunday morning, right? I mean, and political talk shows that nobody watches. So I think there's going to be a ways to go where I think that can even really be considered, really be a reality. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer has been linked with the vacant job at Leicester City.
Ah, right.
Jules, he last worked in 2021.
Yes.
Albeit at Old Trafford. Is that a concern? Or will you tell me that the concern is that he's Ole Gunnar Solskjaer? Because you're going to be mean. Like you're mean about most former Manchester United managers.
I would only say that it's maybe not a coincidence if he hasn't worked in 3 years. That's all I'm saying.
Come on. All right, let me ask you this.
But he was just not a very good manager. That's as simple as that. He was not at Mulder. He was not at Cardiff. He was not at Manchester United either.
Every single Manchester United manager is on a boat that's sinking. Yeah. Right? You come by in your yacht. Yeah. Every single former Manchester United manager since Sir Alex Ferguson. Okay. And you can only save one to manage Paris Saint-Germain next year. Yeah. Who do you save?
Ralph Rangnick.
Oh, that's your first choice.
Straight away.
Who's your second choice?
So what? Moyes, Van Gaal, Mourinho, Solskjaer, and Ten Hag, right?
You can have Carrick too if you want.
Oh my God, and Carrick.
And Giggs.
Oh my, no. I was on holidays with him, by the way, last week. That was strange in itself. I go Mourinho because it's box office. And then Ten Hag maybe.
Mourinho, Paris Saint-Germain, that's a match maybe.
Can you imagine? I would love it. Back to Bayern, Gab. Fulham have reportedly rejected Bayern's £30 million bid for João Palhinha.
So this is the part I don't understand, right? So last August.
Yeah. I knew you were going to say that. I was going to say the same.
Was it August or was it January? Whatever.
Yeah, the 31st of August. Remember, he traveled to Munich. He was at the airport on the last day of the transfer window.
And they bid 60 million, 50 million for him. And Thomas Tuchel was like, yeah, the number 6, yeah. Right? And now, supposedly, in the meantime, Palhinha has signed a contract extension through 2027.
That's right.
And now they think, oh, let's just bid 30 million?
Yeah.
I don't.
Because he's a year older, so we knock off half of the price that we offered a year ago.
Even though now he's got the long-term contract. Yeah. And also, does Palhinha seem to you like a company-type player?
No, definitely not. No, that's not the 6 we want. But Max Albert said the other day, I saw him in an interview saying, someone like, he was obviously not at the club last summer, and said, someone like Palhinha and would have resolved the issues we had in midfield. So, clearly Max Herbert is on board with the need of a number 6, but is Palhinha really the kind of company likes a ball playing number 6, not just a guy, a destructor?
You know who really doesn't like Palhinha?
No.
I mean, really, really doesn't like, to the point that, so we did our FC 100, right? And Ryan O'Hanlon, from his data perspective, although in this one he says it's not even about data, it's just eye test. He explained to us what we got wrong, what players we ranked too high, and what players we ranked too low. He's not having Palhinha anywhere near the top 30.
Okay.
And he says his ball progression is bad, his passing is bad, all this other stuff.
That's just not his role. So you can't base your judgment on somebody who doesn't play like that. He's not asked to carry the ball, and he's not asked to pass the ball in a certain way either. So,
right. Well, you take it up with Ryan.
Yeah.
And he says, plus, just your eye test, not even his nerdy data stuff, just looking at him and says, like, this guy is not good at playing this sport of football. That's his point.
Right, fair enough.
Rough day for the United States in their warm-up for the Copa America as they get trounced by Colombia 5-1. Jules, I think the last 3 goals are all results of them playing out from the back and giving up the press. I mean...
Yeah, some bad mistakes. Turner in goal, Richards, Robinson at the back. I thought with the ball there were some interesting things, and they created chances, to be fair, and they came back to 2-1 after being 2-0 down against a good Colombia team. Really good Colombian team who hasn't lost now for a very long time. I think 20 games in a row or something. And then the third goal kills you. And then the last 2 goals are quite late, 85th and 88th or 89th minute, which still counts, of course. I'm not dismissing them. But so it's a heavy defeat, really. I think the next game is against Brazil, right? The last friendly before Copa America, maybe. It's another big opposition. So you just want them to get into it with a bit of confidence and momentum, and the 5-1 defeat is not that.
It doesn't do that. I don't have a problem, though. This is a friendly, right?
Yeah.
So, like, at 2-1, you can see the goal. If I'm Greg Berhalter, I'm not going to tell the guys, hey, guys, stop playing out from the back.
No, you're right.
You have to keep doing it. If you make a mistake, you make a mistake. This is what practice is for. But
no, I know. But by now, I'm so close to the tournament, you would hope that they're better at it.
You would hope that they're better at it. But if this is what he wants to do,
I know.
Not going to stop doing it.
Yeah.
The same way with this Matt Turner business. Like, I'm sorry, with all the love in the world, like, the guy's had a really rough time at club level. Like, it's not going to help him with his confidence going into the tournament.
That's true. 6 clubs, Gabby, are reportedly in danger of breaching the PSR, so the profit and sustainability rules from the Premier League, if they don't guarantee and generate cash before June 30th. Gab, who are they? And should their fans be worried?
All right, no surprise here. This is reported by Sky over here and a bunch of others. So there's obviously been a briefing, right? So we kind of know, because funny enough, it's Leicester who are already under investigation 70 ways from tomorrow. It's Forest and Everton who were both penalized before. So of course you're going to. They're saying, I think if you're an Everton or Forest fan, and I would hope that this is how it works, and don't hold me to it, but Everton have already been penalized twice for this, right? All they're saying is, guys, you need to sell by this date so you can square it away. You're still paying the price for stuff that happened before, but that's kind of how it works. It's over, there's this rolling period. And Forest as well, not a surprise. Newcastle, I'm assuming, is all down to that big spree that they had and the fact that then they didn't qualify for Europe. Chelsea, we've talked about. There's the sale of the hotel business, which is a bit funny. I think it's still totally unclear whether they'll accept that or not. Even if without the hotels, Lewis Hall, Omari Hutchinson, they'll get there. Possibly Maatsen.
Yeah, they make enough money.
So Villa is the one that surprised me a little bit.
They spend a lot, though.
They did spend a lot. And then I'm thinking to myself, okay, so are they going to balance this out by shifting somebody? And then when you look at this Villa team, if I were to ask you, okay, which Villa players are there that you're willing to let go for a fee to cash in? You know, there aren't going to, obviously, Watkins, you could sell for a lot of money, presumably.
Yeah,
but
Douglas Luiz.
You don't want
but
Watkins.
You don't want to sell them, yeah.
Douglas Luiz is maybe the only one because there's a bit of a contractual issue there.
Yeah.
Tielemans arrived on a free, but then he's going to be on big wages, so this, you're not
and
he's not going to
be. He's not going to bring you like 60 million or 70
so,
million.
So I just kind of wondering what, you know, Matty Cash's name is being bandied
Konsa,
about.
Maybe Konsa, or even Emi Martinez. But then you need to, that's the thing, you need to replace them by players who are same level or better.
The market for goalkeepers is, there's just too many keepers on the market right now. So it's not going to be Emi Martinez, I don't think. Not the best warm-up for Portugal as they fall at home to Croatia 2-1. Is this reason for our man, and I will now pronounce him first, Mark Ogden style, Roberto Martinez, and then I'm going to pronounce him the way I pronounce him, Roberto Martinez, to worry?
Well, it's one of those friendlies we mentioned already, blah, blah. However, this was not good at all from a Portugal point of view, collectively and individually. So this is probably, you would think, the starting lineup. They have one more friendly because they enter the Euros later. So they'll have 3 instead of 2 like France and England or Italy, etc. Gonzalo Ramos started as a number 9. You put Cristiano in there, and that's your starting lineup, I would think.
What about the Cristiano haters who think that he shouldn't start?
Well, I think Roberto is going to start him anyway. But maybe he should not start. But that's one of the question marks that we have over these teams.
Gonzalo Ramos has not pulled up trees in his absence.
No, but he presses better, more, and it's normal. He's like 15 years younger,
of course.
16 years younger. So he's always going to run more than Cristiano. In this 4-3-3, if you play Vitinha, Palhinha and Bruno Fernandes in midfield, that means Bernardo Silva has to play wide on the right and then Cristiano in the center. And then on the left, Leao was on the bench and Joao Felix started. It could be the other way around. I don't know, but I think Roberto Martinez like Joao Felix in terms of ball control. And then at the back, you start Pep. Pep was on the bench. You play Ruben Diaz and one of the 2 youngsters, your boy Ignacio or Antonio Silva, who started. So there's still a few question marks over, but this was bad. And by the way, Croatia were really good.
Yeah,
better than I thought they would, to be fair.
I had a lot of doubts. I know Budimir scored a ton of goals in La Liga this year, but I mean, he's not intimidated.
No.
And he's actually going to probably get more and better service with Croatia than he does with Osasuna.
Definitely.
So that's an interesting look. And Kramaric then allows them to play in a wide area.
It's just a shame for them, I guess, that they are in such a strong group with Italy and Spain.
Yeah, it's a shame.
Because
for
they
Italy.
qualify. Yeah, it's a shame for Italy. But you know what I mean? Like, I didn't expect Croatia to be that good. And maybe they looked really good in that game, and it might be very different in a week time when they start Euros. VAR is going nowhere, Gab. Premier League clubs voted 19-1 to keep it at their meeting last Thursday. We know who the one is. Obviously, it's Wolves, but all of the 19 have voted in favour of keeping it, but they promised to improve it.
Gee, what a shock. This is so stupid. Like, you know, a lot of media outside of England, when Wolves put the challenge, like, oh, the Premier League want to abolish VAR, they'll vote on it, blah, blah, blah. It's not close. It's one team. It's one team that was... I don't even think they want to abolish VAR. I think they just want VAR to be improved.
Yeah.
They've said all the right things. I think the only thing that's really going to make a difference is semi-automatic offside, which is going to come in October. They want quicker decisions. They want better training. Gee, who doesn't want better training? Yeah, better communications. Sure. Where they have big screens that are equipped to do it, they'll show the incident on the screen.
Yeah.
Keep the fence. These are all common sense things.
Yeah.
Like, this is going to come over time with better officiating, more people who are specifically trained to be VARs. Jamie Vardy has signed a 1-year extension at Leicester. Jules, he's 38 in January, but this warms my heart.
It's lovely, really lovely. I think I know what you're going to say. I think he would have signed a new deal with a pay cut, obviously, at his age. But it's great. He scored 18 goals in the Championship last season. It was a big part, even if he started a lot of games on the bench and came on during games, because I don't think at 38 he can start every single game, certainly not in the Premier League next season. But you know what he's going to bring you if he comes in for the last 10, 20, 25 minutes. Obviously, we don't know who the next manager is. It doesn't matter, though. Vardy is Vardy. Not Solskjaer for sure. And you would think that whoever is the next manager would be very happy to have him still in the dressing room anywhere and be able to bring him as a super sub.
Just as a reminder of just like how wild his story is, I think he needs like 8 goals to pass Robin van Persie on the Premier League scorers list, which, again, football was invented in 1992, but it's still significant when you consider he only got to the top flight way late in his career.
Yeah, 30 or something like that.
It's just such a wonderful story.
Yeah. St. Pauli, Fabian Ursula is reportedly the favourite now, Gab, to take over Brighton. We know that Brighton like to think outside of the box, but this is way, way outside of the box.
It really is for so many reasons. So first of all, he was born in the U.S. I'm assuming he has an American passport, which
I think so.
He kind of becomes like the answer to a trivia question. I mean, his parents worked in Houston, and he was born there, and then he moved away when he was 2. So I don't think he necessarily has any kind of Texan twang when he speaks in English.
To Texas, yeah.
But again, rubbish player. Started coaching at a young age. People saw his talent. Coached in the amateur leagues. Got involved with the under-20 setup, the under-21 German setup. Became an assistant coach at St. Pauli in 2020. And then has been coaching St. Pauli for 2 years and got promoted. Now this is a huge leap outside the box, even for Brighton, who like to do things that others don't do. You hope that he got it right. He's certainly, I think, going to be. It's going to be a lot less of a pain in the backside that our man Robbie DZ became towards the end of his tenure there. Spurs are reportedly ready to let Tanguy Ndombele leave for nothing, even though he has a year left on his contract. So much for that 50 million euro option to buy that Galatasaray negotiated.
Yeah, and didn't feel like triggering, obviously, because he was just not good enough in that season. I think this is such a waste. An incredible waste, Gab. One of the worst transfers at this kind of we're talking like he's still, I think, right now the most expensive Spurs signing, I think, at £65 million. It has to be one of the worst for transfers of that caliber, of that kind of money. I don't
Anthony's
know.
like, hold my beer, but whatever.
Yeah, but you see what I mean? It's one of those. It's the one that you can talk about. Dembele to Barcelona, or even, you see what I mean? It's like those Coutinho to those super expensive ones. I mean, he's even worse than those two guys.
We spoke to a Spurs
Real Madrid,
who said that he's probably the most talented player who's ever had as a teammate.
Listen, I've seen him do things that I promise you, not many people in the whole world can do with the ball.
You sound like the guy from 2001: Space Odyssey.
No, but I just don't know I just don't know what happened. And we talked about Martial before because you like taking the mickey. No, you like taking the mickey. But it's a similar situation, Gab. Martial has done better at United and Ndombele has done at Spurs. But it's those super. But when I say super talented, I just want people to understand how talented those guys are. They are so good, and yet you don't see it because they don't fancy it, because they don't want to train. Because they don't want to train and to run and put the effort in and do this and do that. Because the attitude is wrong. Because
is it wrong attitude? I mean, can we definitively say when people sit in Ndombele down and say, Tanguy, where did it all go wrong?
Yeah.
What does he say?
He will never admit it, I think. He will say, well, that coach didn't trust me. This one didn't. I didn't have a feeling with him. This one didn't play me. This one kept shouting at me. I mean, Mourinho and Ndombele, you can write a book about their relationship, the love and hate. Because I think Mourinho...
Remember they were running together during the pandemic?
Yeah. He went to knock at his door and Ndombele was, who's that in the pandemic? And he was Jose saying, come down, let's go running.
Who's that? I'm your boss.
In your park, yeah. But the love and hate, because I think Jose, of all people, it's like, man, this is an absolute waste. You're so good. Why don't you use all that talent? I don't know. But he would have earned enough money, so maybe it's down to that. Maybe those guys who maybe have less ambition and are not as driven as a Cristiano, just to take the most extreme example of driven people, and just think, you know what, I'll have a career anyway. I'll play for good teams. I'll earn a lot of money, and that's enough for me.
He has a year left on his contract, so obviously when we say Spurs would let him leave for free, Spurs aren't going to cancel his contract.
No, they're going to pay him off a bit.
They either pay him off or they just let him go on loan somewhere, let his contract expire, then he becomes a free agent.
Yeah, but I think it's just a really sad situation. Roma's owners, the Friedkin family, are reportedly looking to join the race, Gab, to take over Everton, along with our pal John Texter. I guess this is good news for the Toffees, right?
Yeah, I love the Texter v. Friedkin derby. How about that? That's exciting.
Yeah, very exciting.
So first of all, there is good news from the Toffees for long-suffering Everton fans. I was speaking to somebody. You know the 200 million that 777 borrowed and then actually put into the club.
The loan to the club, yeah.
Well, depending how things, if 777 become insolvent, they're not getting that money back because, like I was speaking to people, like they're highly unlikely to be last in line. So at least that 200 million that went into the club stays in the club.
Yeah,
buys them some time. Look, we have fun with John Texter. I think the complicated thing with him is he would have to ditch his Palace shares to be able to do this. Otherwise, that could take time. The Friedkins, they put a lot of money into Roma. A lot of money. I don't know.
And then they stopped.
And then they had to. Well,
they had to
it's
stop.
not that they stopped because they ran out of money. It's just stopped because they have to deal with financial fair play like everybody else. I don't quite know what the play is here, how serious they are. But you know what? If you can get Everton at the right price, given the club's history, given the project with the stadium already underway, I think you have to look at it. Manchester City have extended Stefan Ortega's contract by a year, Jules. Is this significant, or are they merely, and I quote, preserving asset value?
I think it was much more that than anything else, really, because he had only 1 year left on his contract. Now he's tied until 2025.
No, 2026.
2026, sorry. He said that he wants to be number one, which is great. I mean, I want to be number 1 and 2 at Manchester City. But as long as Ederson is there, he won't be number 1. And even if Ederson leaves, which is a possibility, maybe this summer, although I don't believe in it, I'm not sure Stefan Ortega is your number 1 at City at 31 years old. And especially
he's older
after
than Ederson.
Yeah, especially after what we saw in the FA Cup final, which up to then, he obviously had a good season when he played and when he had to play. But the FA Cup final was an absolute disaster and he cost his team probably the win. So
I think the play from City now, and we wrote about it in our Mark Ogden and I Manchester Keeper Dump series, is okay, so you've added a year now. You still need to move him because I don't think Ederson Saudi saying.
Why don't you keep him as a number 2? He's a great number 2 to have.
It's just a lot of money to put into a number 2.
I know.
You've added a year. Why not bring in? What I would do is get some money back for him. Bring in number 2, who you think can one day replace Ederson, because you know who the number 3 is. It's not going to be the number 3 who replaces Ederson. No, Number 3, of course, being Scott Carson, who I believe is older than you. Yeah. So that's how it. Because otherwise, you'll be in the same situation next year. You have to extend Ortega again. So as long as there's nothing, as long as there's no issues with Ederson. Ederson, by the way, his contract expires 2026 as well. Yeah. So extend Ederson and bring in his long-term replacement, who will be a youngster who can play under Ederson for a couple of years. You give yourself some leverage with Ederson, future extensions as well, and you got the guy in-house.
Yeah. And staying with goalkeeper, Gab, now that Saudi Pro League clubs are allowed to sign foreign goalkeepers, Wojciech Szczesny could be joining his old pal Cristiano Ronaldo at Al Nassr. But what does that mean for Juventus then?
So they've brought in Michele Di Gregorio, the mighty Michele.
I like him a lot.
He's got the beard, he's got the look, he's the warrior keeper. Some people say he was the keeper of the year in Serie A even. Yeah. It's a loan with an obligation to buy at 20 million because, let's face it, cash is scarce at Juve right now. They're also going to extend Mattia Perin. I think the idea is next season, those two will be your goalkeepers. Now, how much money can you get for Szczesny? I've seen some huge figures out there in the press. No. He's a very good goalkeeper, but he has a year left on his deal. Yeah. So in those conditions, otherwise, if I'm Szczesny, I'm saying, you know what? Screw this. Rather than you making somebody in Saudi pay 50 million for me, how about I just sit on my backside for a year, and then I split that 50 million with the Saudis and get even richer. I'm not sure Szczesny. Obviously, if they make it'll be the De Bruyne principle, right? If it's life-altering money, sure. But I think Szczesny might look around and say, maybe an injury here, there. Maybe I'm not ready to go to Saudi.
Maybe.
Jean-Noël.
I know, funny name.
I'm not sure why. But I've even forgotten what the name is. It's autocorrect. Well, even after you told me.
I told you.
By the way, it's Belosio.
Yeah, Belosio.
It autocorrects to Belgium. I'm like, don't worry, I'll remember the guy's name. Obviously, he's a defender from Rennes. Yeah. He's on his way to Bayer Leverkusen. Yeah. Exciting?
So
Jonathan Tah need to look over his shoulder?
No, it's an interesting one. He's 19 years old, so he's just at the start of his career. 15 million euros, which I think is a good price for both.
That's a lot of money for a guy who's 19. He's got one top flight season under his belt.
And loads of mistakes because it's a learning curve, but very, very promising though. So I think you buy that kind of talent at that age, because if you don't buy him now, it would be worth 45 million in 2 years. If things go like you expect them to be, because he's really that good. So maybe it's a bit high, you're right, but I'm not sure if you take many risks, because you will always be able to, even if it doesn't work out, to sell him to a lesser club in Bundesliga for 10 million.
Here's my question with him and his choice of Bayer Leverkusen. He looks at the team this year, and okay, there's Tapsoba, there's Jonathan Tah, there's Kosunu. I think Kapi has played in the back line as well. So he's like, I'm not going to start, and I get to work with Xabi Alonso, but a year from now, well, Xabi Alonso, is he going to stick around?
No, that's a good
point. I wonder about that. What, in terms of pathway in future.
I think maybe he thinks that Jonathan Tah is going, so that's one less.
This summer.
Yeah, one less player in the competition. And then with the back three, you know that you can play. Maybe he can probably play also as a right wing back, although he's more defensive than attacking really. But I think this could be a great experience for him, and maybe Rennes felt too small already. Although I think he could have gained by staying another season in France, to be fair. But we'll have to see. Milan are hoping to announce both Joshua Zirkzee and Paulo Fonseca this week. Gab, do you think they'll get their wish?
Fonseca, yes. Zirkzee. So here's the thing with Zirkzee. Obviously, did so well at Bologna. There is a 40 million euro clause, and Milan are willing to pay it. Funny enough, Bayern, where he was before, are not. And
that's mad.
I guess they have Matthijs Tel, who they like.
Yeah, but they could have put a clause to get at least some money of him. You know?
I think they're going to get some of it.
Oh, they're going to get some of it.
I know. But the sticking point is the commission, where for the agent, for the intermediary in this, who is a guy we both know, who's been a guest on the show.
Yeah.
Geoffrey Moncada from Milan was in London. In fact, I think he's still in London as we speak, trying to negotiate and trying to get the deal down from the starting point, which was reported as 15 million. I don't think it's that high. I think they'll do the deal at someplace lower. But look, with the kind of season he has, with the kind of skill set that he has, because you're talking about a guy who's tall, athletic, fast,
so good,
but also super creative.
Yeah,
as a center forward, that gets people really, really excited.
Yeah.
So I think they're going to bring this over the line. But the thing about Milan is they're not going to be held to ransom. They've made that very, very clear. Brian Priske is the new boss at Feyenoord, replacing Arne Slot. Jules, he won league titles at Sparta Prague. I think he was at Antwerp, didn't quite go according to plan. He was in Michelin before that when he won something, when he was part of the Brentford Benham family.
Yeah, the revolution there.
But this is still a little left field.
Yeah,
I mean, not as left field as the guy from St. Pauli, Hertzler, but...
Yeah, maybe, I guess so. And also, I think a lot of people in the Netherlands would maybe not have heard of him, unless you watched Sparta Prague in the Europa League being really good this season.
Which you did. Was it some weirdo, high-pressing, high-intensity team?
Yeah.
So it's like watching that. Brentford, right?
It's a bit like that.
Lump.
Yeah.
Ivan Toney.
Like
No.
No, they have like a quite physical striker, if I remember well. So I'm not surprised, because again, I think Feyenoord would have recruited a bit like Liverpool did after Klopp with Slot. Feyenoord would have done the same. Okay, who in Europe right now plays and has similarities to what we do, to what Slot does? And I think Priske, I would think on data, comes up really, really high in that. So you go with him. Again, I think unless you're terrible, right now seeing where Feyenoord are, how good their squad has been, the momentum from the last few seasons, even losing Slot, he should at least finish in the top three, with PSV, and then if Ajax come back or AZ Alkmaar, still it's good. So it's not, that unless it's a catastrophe and a disaster, Priske should do a decent job anyway. So it's a calculated risk, I guess.